In this video, we are going to cover what is height. This set of notes is VL-1302. Let's begin. In order to find the area of different polygons and shapes, which is another word for shapes, we will need to identify the height and base of different shapes. So we need to talk about what is height. Seems kind of obvious, but it gets a little bit weirder when you think about it some more. So what is height and how do you measure it? Jim, Tim, and Slim are identical triplets, meaning they are exactly the same, going to a doctor's appointment. The doctor is going to measure their height during their visit. Jim stood up straight with his arms down. This must be Jim here. Tim stood up straight with an arm raised. I guess that's Tim. Slim laid down on the ground. He must be the lazy one. Who has the largest height and who has the shortest height? Well, it should be obvious. They're the same. They're equal in their height. They're all equal. I could say they are all equal. Why are they all equal? Because they're triplets. Now, just because one person is standing and one person is standing with their arm raised and one person is lying down, would you say that this person, Tim, has the largest height or has the biggest height? No, you wouldn't, because when you measure someone's height, you go from the bottom of their feet to the top of their head. So for Slim over here, you would go from here, laying down, all the way to the top of his head. You wouldn't just say, oh, well, you just must be, half foot tall because you're lying down from the bottom to the top. It doesn't work that way, right? Let's look at example 2. Juliana and Lily were given a picture of a house and asked to measure the height with a ruler. Juliana set the ruler to be vertical and measured the height of the house to be 4 inches. So, they had a picture of a house that was like sideways, I guess. They didn't decide to turn the page or turn the page sideways so that it would be, the house would be standing upright. They just measured it from the side. So Juliana measured and said, oh, it's 4 inches. Lily set the ruler to be horizontal and measured the height of the house to be 6 inches. So she measured it from here to here and finds out, oh, the house is 6 inches. Juliana says height should always be measured vertically or up and down. But Lily disagrees. Who do you think measured the height of the house correctly? Is there a correct way to measure the height of the house? Explain it. There is a correct way to measure the house because Lily is correct. Lily is correct. Why is she correct? Because there is a bottom of a house and there is a top of the house, which is right here. From here to here is the top of the house. You wouldn't say the bottom of the house is this side and the top of the house is this side because the picture of the house is clearly sideways. So Lily is correct because the house is sideways. The picture is sideways. And the bottom is, as we explained, the bottom is on the left side of the page and the top of the house is on the right side of the page. So, okay. Below is a triangle that is positioned in 3 different ways. We have this triangle ABC. It's sitting like this, and this is actually the same triangle. And this is also the same triangle. It's just the A side is over here, then over here, then over here. So they're like rotating it. So which is a proper way for the triangle to be standing in order to measure its height? The first way, the second way, or the third way, and explain. Actually, this looks like it's the best way to stand it because it'd be the least likely to fall over. But this probably will stand up as well. And this actually could stand up as well if it's heavy enough. So, which is the proper way? They're all proper, actually. They're all proper ways of standing. So, here's the thing. If you're going to stand this triangle like this, well, let's talk about why. Because the bottom of the triangle it's not defined. Isn't obvious. Better word is the bottom of the triangle isn't defined. So like we know what the bottom of a person is. We know what the bottom of a house is. We don't really know what the bottom of a triangle is. Like the bottom of a triangle is just kind of whichever side is on the bottom, right? And so how you measure the height, unlike with this person, these guys right here, you measure, there's a specific way of measuring a person's height from their feet to the top of their head, not to the top of their, arm that's like being held up, but from the bottom of their feet to the top of their head. Same with a house. We know what the bottom of a house is, and we know what the top of a house is. Even if a picture of a house is sideways, we don't measure it like from, vertically. We measure it from the bottom to the top. With a triangle, it's not super obvious what the bottom is, because if you turn this page around, or turn this triangle around, isn't this the new bottom? So was it easier to determine the base or the bottom in example 1 and example 2 with the people in the house? Why do you think that is? And did this make it easier to label the height? Was it easier? Yes. And why do you think that is? Because the base is obvious. Did it make it easier to measure the height? The answer to that is yes. Why do you think there are so many different ways you can measure the height of a triangle? Kind of like what we said before, the base or the bottom isn't obvious or defined. Like if I told you what the base was, like, oh, the base is A because it's the first letter, sure. Then it's easy, then you know the height is actually going to be this right here. So A is a base, this is going to be the height. If I told you the base is B and that's what B stands for, you're like, oh, that means the height is like this guy right here. And if I told you the base is actually C because it's the biggest piece, then you'd be like, oh, okay, well then the height is right there. So using knowledge for question 4, can you write a definition? I'm going to use kind of a big word, but the height is the perpendicular, which means it crosses and makes a 90-degree angle. Perpendicular length that touches the base and goes to the top of the top of the shape. So I know that's not an easy definition, but it is an accurate definition. So perpendicular means it's a line that makes a 90-degree angle. Like as you can see, the height right here is making a 90-degree angle. It doesn't exactly touch the base, but it is in line with the base. That, I should say, lines up with the base. Or that, I should put quotation mark, touches the base. All right, so yeah, that is height. It's not as obvious as you think. Height of people, height of houses, pretty easy. But height of shapes sometimes a little bit more confusing because, the height, because you don't know exactly how to measure shapes because you don't know exactly what the bottom is. So anyways, you're probably going to have to you probably run into some questions where you're trying to find the area and area of different shapes like triangles and parallelograms and trapezoids, other shapes, where figuring out the difference between the base and height is important. So go ahead and try some of those problems on your own. Good luck.